10 years ago, I remember sat in the office. Clear Channel had not long been formed in this country, and somebody just came up with this great idea of creating a rock festival. And I, at the time, I didn't know a huge amount about the rock genre, and some would argue I probably still don't. But it's just I wanted a festival. I wanted us to have our own festival, so went along with it, and before we knew it, we were into the first year of Download. There was a lot of convincing to be done with head office in America. I remember having a conference call with Tim Parsons in the UK, who was the head of the UK at the time, and Michael Rapino in America, and we were literally going through the budget line by line, every single panel of fencing and every bit of staging, just trying to kind of hammer it down to something that would work. And when we got to the festival, I think the strongest memory I have of the first year is when we opened the gates on the campsite. And we were expecting the old monsters of rock, that older audience, big ugly gits like me. And first ones through the door were about 18. Yeah. And the next lot through the door were about 16, and then 22, and then 15. And we suddenly realised we'd set this whole festival up for an old rockers audience, and they were kids, effectively. So
it was that new genre of rock, wasn't it? It's certainly when it kind of bounced back again about 10 years ago.
And the whole experience was just unbelievable. It was a roller coaster ride that first year. And looking back on it, we probably held on by the skin of our teeth.
The whole team was about 8 people, and it's now like probably 80 people. So it's the difference in just in our kind of little nucleus. So
I remember we stayed at the hotel in Kegworth, and I remember on the Sunday night, getting back there after it was all over, and Stuart Galbraith came up to me, and Stuart and I we'd been enemies for so many years, and we were always trying to nick each other's business, and we were brought together in Clear Channel, and there was still, we were working together now, and Tim Parsons had basically told us to both behave ourselves and work together, because what he was good at, I wasn't, and vice versa. And Stuart came up to me on the night and he hugged me, and it was like a proper full-on bear hug, and I remember, thinking, wow, that's really great. And I said, thank you very much, but if you ever hug me in public again, I'll kill you. You and Stuart worked very closely for, the early years of Download.
It was 5 years, wasn't it? The first 5 years.
And we used to have, Hannah and I used to sit in his office for hours, late at night, just going through site plans and budgets and site plans and budgets. And every time we went a site plan, every time we changed the site plan, changing the budget, vice versa. And it was fantastic. We had some great. It was hard work. Doing the show inside the circuit was hard. You had a live motor racing circuit going on around you. You could only get across the track at certain times. Yeah. It was tough. And then Andy got more and more involved, and then Stuart moved on, and
we couldn't grow inside the track either, could we? It had its limitations in terms of capacity as well. We couldn't go anywhere with it, and so we initially moved the festival site out to what we now use as car parks, which just didn't have that right feel that first year, did it?
It's horrible.
And we've been here now, this is our 4th year out on the front at front of Donington. It's just brilliant. The arena just works brilliantly out there. It was just when I think recorded music was realising the impact of what downloaded music was going to have on the industry, and hence why it was a kind of buzzword at the time, wasn't it? But also because the audience was younger and had started to grow up on that kind of music rather than the old vinyl music, and so it seemed like a good fit at the time. And obviously we could then link that in with people downloading live tracks afterwards and things like that, so it kind of linked people back to our websites, back to the forums, and then that's kind of where it really started growing that kind of new media, as it was called a long time ago, age.
Well, the first year that was the whole idea, and that went tits up because nobody had let us download any of their songs. So it's
we kind of forgot to record it.
It was this great thing of, let's call it Download because digital music is the new thing, and it's great. And then we went to all the bands and said, can we have some of your tracks to let the audience download? And it was like, no. So we'd already gone with the name. And I think once we realised, it was like, something, it's still a cool name, it's a great name. And it has, it's become the biggest rock festival in Europe, possibly in the world. You know, and I think everybody now accepts it as, you know, Download is a fantastic brand. You know, and again the age of the audience has helped with that, and you know, the stuff we do. New media is essential, absolutely essential, in terms of marketing the festival, getting information, and of course the world famous Download forum, which Hannah and I have different opinions on.
No, I think we both respect definitely the opinions that we get, and the kind of, we've got like the biggest focus group ever that tell us exactly what they think, and it helps us make changes, it helps us improve. It sometimes frustrates us because you feel like you have improved and they repeat the same things, but then you still keep learning and you still keep understanding what people want, and we have access to that all the time. And which, you know, as a marketing tool is amazing, and as a marketing focus group is amazing as well. So you know, you certainly can't knock it. And John's obviously very active with that as well, particularly.
We use it a lot. You know, if we're thinking of doing something different or introducing something, I'll go on the forum and just create a thread, say,
what do you think?
We're thinking of banning gazebos because they cause a nightmare on the campsite. It went down really well. 175 pages later.
I told you you wouldn't like it.
But it was interesting because rather than people just saying you can't do that, it's not fair, blah blah blah, it was like, well actually this is why we have a gazebo. And you know, I remember one of the classic was, well, what we tend to do, the 6 tents, we put them like the Alamo, and have a gazebo in the middle. If we didn't have a gazebo, we'd still do that. So it takes and the realisation was, do you know something? Even if we bang gazebos, it's not going to make any difference to the amount of space on the campsite. There was another one where when we first started talking about what's now become the famous cashless system, and this was 3 years ago. I remember doing my infamous. I remember doing my the first thread on there, and oh my God, you'd think that I told them we were going to rob them in their beds. The backlash was unbelievable, and it was everything from this is just Big Brother watching us to the festival just conning us out of money again, and just realisation that people just didn't understand what
they weren't ready for it, were they?
So we've spent 3 years educating them, and it's got to the point now where they're asking us when it's coming.
Yeah.
So it's it works for us. You get some people on there that just blatantly want to go on and slag somebody off or slag something off, and you just ignore them, or in my case have a bit of fun with them. And I've always said to them on the forum, you can say anything you like on this forum, just make sure that any claims that you make or anything like that, you can back it up with facts. Just don't make wild accusations, because I'll have you. So when we do, there's a core following on there of hardcore forum members, and we do a little thing for them on the Thursday of Download, and it's called the Boardies Barbecue, and we get the top 300 forum members, get them into one of the indoor stages here on the Thursday, do a barbecue and a few beers for them. Give a little speech, tell a few jokes, take the mick out of Andy Coppin and his daft hat, and that's it. And it works really, really well.
I think it's also grown over the last 2 years outside the forum. Kind of the extension of that has become Facebook and Twitter, which is obviously across the world. So it's kind of moving on again. And the forum's still very popular. But what kind of Twitter and Facebook's brought is that just people wanting to know kind of push bits, like every now and again, just like snippets, rather than sitting constantly chatting. And so it's a nice way to again just keep kind of letting people know what we're doing. Again, people tell us back what they think, and it's just that nice kind of interaction all the time. And we do that 364 days a year, so we're constantly doing that. It's not something that we stop ever, is it?
No, not at all. And when when it gets to the festival, the fans are more knowledgeable about what goes on behind the scenes, because we talk about it a lot on the on the forum. I remember 5-6 years ago there was a big thing about security, and security are an easy target at festivals. It doesn't matter how good they are, they get the brunt of the moans and the groans and the aggression. And I remember somebody weighing me up on there, and a guy called Ian, and I kind of retaliated, and I said, look, it's not just about me sitting here saying you're wrong. I want to prove that you're wrong. So I invited him. I said, right, the next Download, you're going to come and spend a day with me. and you're going to come round and you're going to come to all the security briefings, and you're going to see exactly what goes into it. And he did, to be honest. And I mean, he's actually become a friend of mine now, and it was great because he saw firsthand exactly, Showsec are an amazing company and work so hard on this festival, and well, on any job they do. They work so hard on this festival to make sure that the customer experience is, a good one and a safe one. And just people sitting there saying, "Oh, security are crap because they wouldn't let me in," so and so. It just winds me up. So I wanted to, even if it was just one person I could prove wrong, it was good to do that.
I mean, since because obviously that was John's background, so it's always been kind of entrenched in our
team,
hasn't
it?
Job. That's when we did real things. So it's always been entrenched in our background anyways, from going into Clear Channel, hadn't it? So it was something that we kind of followed through. But obviously we got to the stage where we were running such large shows that we were obviously using contractors to do the work per show. What we needed was all year round someone to properly focus on it so that we could actually build proper policies that followed through all the way through the year. And Cookie was just the obvious person for us to take on, to be honest. We kind of looked at each other at one point, and it was a no-brainer, wasn't it? What we were trying to do was find a Cookie, and we were like, let's just see if we can hire Cookie.
I've known Cookie for God knows, 20 years. When I first started doing events, he used to work on them on the medical side, and I lost touch with him, and he ended up working for the contractor that used to do all our health and safety. And as Hannah said, I remember saying it'd be great if we could find a Cookie. And
we ended up interviewing people, didn't we, outside of the industry that just didn't have the same.
And what we were doing, we were actually comparing them to Cookie. And Hannah said, "Let's just do it," and we did. We stole him blatantly.
It's the best thing we've ever done.
And it is, and he's great. We're very lucky to have Paul.
It's an amazing support for us, isn't it, to have that kind of. Just that comfort that there's somebody that's key focus is that side of because you can, when you've got an overarching vision of the whole festival, you have everything from artist liaison to production to health and safety, and it's nice that part of it has somebody constantly sat there, and he has a small team now that focus on that. So and obviously he oversees all the security side of things too. So it's a great kind of, it's a massive cog in the wheel.
The majority of people involved in festivals only see a small part of what goes on. The obvious thing are the stages, all the lights, the sound, the video, the roadies, the bands, the
rock and roll.
The rock and roll side of it. What people don't see is what we affectionately call cookie porn, which is what Cookie deals with, and it's anything during the planning stages. It's the the licensing side, health and safety, or the documentation on health and safety these days is absolute. I mean, our own documents. Beg a belief that I remember the first health and safety document I ever wrote. I was pretty impressed because it was something like 50 pages long, and now we have ring binders. We've got
appendices
full.
From A to Z. We run out of letters on the appendices of our EMP and our management plan.
And what that does for us is when we're dealing with local authorities and police forces and etc., is it gives them that sense of kind of satisfaction that we know what we're doing. And what Cookie does, he gives me confidence, gives Hannah confidence that we can concentrate on what we're doing and know that Cookie and his team behind us are effectively keeping not only the customer safe, but the artists, the crew, everybody,
contractors,
the contractors, everybody. The whole idea with Metallica playing the 10th anniversary was something that Andy effectively went out and fought for. He flew over to America and went and knocked on the manager's door and said, "I've got a great idea." And the manager at the time was like, "Well, do you know something? They're not touring." And when he sold him the idea of doing the Black Album,
back to back,
it was like, "Oh, right, okay." But the Snake Pit was very much part of that album, so that's why it came along. We knew all along that's what they wanted. We'd had the plans, etc. We were quite happy until the heavens opened and we had a week's worth of rain, and the arena turned into a quagmire. And Dan Bryan, who's their production manager, somebody I've worked with a number of times, and he's, I have been known to criticise certain American production managers for having no interest in UK health and safety. However, Dan is one of those guys that does get it and does understand, and and genuinely wants to make sure that everybody's okay and has it, and everybody does a good job. So we spoke to him, explained the situation. He came in early, literally as the audience left last night. The deal was that we would look at the state of the ground and decide there and then. And I remember Jim Gaffney, Dan and myself stepped up onto the barrier at the same time, and I think we were all expecting to look over and just see a river of mud, because that's what was there when we let the audience in. And I think we just felt it had rained all day, and it would just be worse. And the three of us literally looked over and all went, oh, because it was just solid mud. It was like almost like concrete.
So they just compacted it all day, taking the moisture out of it.
And Jim looked at it and said, well, I think we can do this. We can make it work. And they did. We went to bed and
woke up and it was done.
Woke up and the site fairies had been, and
the litter pickers had done a great job.
Had done this. How the litter pickers?
I have no idea.
Picked all that off out of the mud. I've got, that's truly amazing. But Jim's a great guy. I think again people don't appreciate the importance of a barrier design. There's a lot. You go to a lot of shows and you can see that. Okay, we've got to have a barrier. We'll put a barrier in. I think again with Cookie and Simon from Showsec, myself and Hannah, the four of us have always debated to the nth degree sometimes.
Yep.
I mean the AC/DC year I can remember, and we'd brought Colin Roger down from T in the Park to help us out, and the amount of conversation we had about barrier designs, because with AC/DC and we had the two stages, the amount of delays in front of houses and everything else, all the crap in the field. I remember at one stage saying, do you know something? It'd be really good if we could leave some space for the audience.
Stop building barriers.
Just because the amount of stuff that was out there.
Barriers is so important here, though, because of the demographic of our audience and the way that they respond to the music. I mean, it is all moshing, and it takes some serious weight, and so the design of it is paramount, really. And it's something that's every year we sit down and kind of reassess, but I think we feel we've got it right, don't we? And it's been a similar design for a few years, but obviously we've got bigger crowds this year as well, so looking at different secondary barriers and things. But I think that last night definitely Jim and the guys did a good job getting the snake pit in, because it was a big deal for the band and it's a big deal for the fans, and it's part of the show, so it's great that we were able to facilitate it.
Well, I mean, the way it works is we'll look at a show ourselves, we'll assess what we think the risks are, and then Cookie will sit down with Jim, talk it through. Jim comes up with the design, and it's very, very rare that we don't. It's not very often that we don't go with his design, because he's a miserable git when he doesn't get his own way. So he's a good guy. I trust Jim a lot, and he's got an amazing team of guys that work for him. Suppliers for me and Hannah are important, and I think it's probably fair to say we're very loyal to and I've always said I'm loyal to a supplier until they either let me down or stitch me up.
Yeah.
If you go through the key suppliers, PRG, they're again fantastic company. Mickey Kirby's a mate of mine, which helps. But I remember when we first started, the first download, I remember phoning Mickey and saying, "I've got 50 grand. What can you do?" And we're starting this festival. And he effectively gave me every light that they'd got in the warehouse, for whatever the budget was, just to help us get it off the ground. If you look at SSE, I mean, John and Heather I've known. I mean, one of the very, very first gigs I ever did was at the NEC in Birmingham, and Heather wrote to me and complained about the noise. And she wrote to me and basically I was like, how dare you? And I thought, right, okay, and I wrote back and said, well, if you think you can do better, come and have a go. And they've been a key contractor with us ever since. Yeah. And again, SSE, a great company. John and Heather become friends of mine. Pete is kind of the crew boss that looks after everybody. He's a great guy, a lot of experience of bands out on the road, and he's kind of settled down now and become all sensible overnight. And he's a good guy. Showsec, we've said. Staging,
obviously Star,
mixture between Star Hire and Stagecoach
over the years.
And there's I wouldn't say we have a preference. It depends on the job,
the show,
doesn't it?
Definitely.
Depends on the show. Can probably understand the Stagecoach stagecoach guys better than you can the bunch of Welsh lunatics that Starhire employ. But again, you know, the Starhire guys are, you know, one of the first staging companies I ever worked with, and they have bailed my backside out of the brown sticky stuff so many times over the years, and always charged me for it. But
that wonderful extras bill you get at the end.
Roger tax. Oh, Neil MacDonald, what a legend!
He's done about 8 years, hasn't he now?
Yeah, great thing about Neil, you know, listen, it's a you know, rock and roll industry. It's full of rock and roll people. A lot of them are full of bullshit.
Not Mr. Mac.
The thing with Neil is he doesn't have that rock and roll attitude. He just wants to get the job done and do a great job. And he's part of the team. Again, you know, we involve him in so many things, so many meetings that you wouldn't normally involve, you know, freelance staff in, because he's good and he contributes towards it.
Neil's great at just taking problems away as well. You don't tend to hear from Neil particularly unless it's really bad, which is very rare, isn't it, that he actually would ever come to us for something that he couldn't solve himself. Which again, I keep saying it, but it kind of gives you that confidence to you know, that you've got the right person doing the right job, and he's, you know, well liked, and so far, touch wood, he's never let us down. So it's a really good relationship, and he's a very, very big part of our team.
Site is looked after by the Ludford family, the Ludford
crew,
clan, Ludford crew. And again, Paul have known for many, many years, and I mean, his son Phil is now, I suppose, really becoming the site manager, isn't he? And Paul's taking more of a backseat planning, or what's he always say, holistic
view. No, Phil and Anita between them are very much the detail side of things, and it's great to have them. Again, it's just great to have them on board, and their experience is unbelievable. I mean, they do a lot of shows around the country, and it's again, when you kind of get yourself into positions like we have this weekend with the weather we've had, it helps having their background knowledge of how we get arenas open and keep the show moving.
I think the other key person, certainly, and I know Hannah feels the same, is Mick Roberts, that looks after the campsite, or Camp Mick, as we like to call him.
He's also our overnight festival manager, which means we can go to bed. Yay!
I think I remember the first year I did Download, I got to bed about 1 o'clock in the morning, and at 2:30 the phone rang, and then it rang again at 3 o'clock, and again at 4:15. Because every time there's a problem, they're calling me. And I said, right, okay, I need somebody to be in charge. Can't be Hannah when I'm, you know, because she needs to be with me during the day. And I'd known, again, Mick's a mate of mine, I'd known him for a long time, and I trusted him. And he came in, and now I go to bed and sleep soundly, knowing that he'll deal with 99% of the problems, and if the phone rings in the middle of the night,
it's for a
really, really good reason.
Yeah.
This is the worst show I've ever done. I mean, Oxygen 2 years ago I thought was bad, but this is just unbelievable. And I can say now. Yesterday morning at about 11:30, I stood in the arena. There was me, Hannah, Simon Battersby, Paul Cook, all the Ludfords, I think, and we all just stood there. And I looked at Lud, and he just got this look on his face of, I don't know what to do. We've tried everything, and we just got this one problem area, but it was a big problem because of the amount of mud and the fact it was right in front of the stage. It was right, just on the secondary barrier.
And again, because of the demographic of Download and the way they move within the pit, having that movement underfoot just isn't okay.
We've got the guy that does all the maintenance and servicing of the cutting the grass and things here. Carl's done every single Monsters Rock and every single Download. He's a legend, and because he's been involved in the circuit for so many years. He knows every blade of grass, every nook, every cranny. We were gonna dig a hole on the campsite the other day to drain away some mud, and he was like, "Oh, well, we'll have to scan it first because of the power cable that runs underneath." And if he hadn't told us that, we'd have just gone ahead and dug a big hole and probably blown ourselves up. And Carl just came up with this idea of pushing it all down into one big puddle and getting the gulper on it, and we did, and it worked.
We delayed doors by 2 hours, but it was the right thing to do to get it ready, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And in fact, we actually ended up opening doors with that still going on and cutting off one side of the arena just to get people in and fed, watered, and enjoying themselves. So it
was great. And the funniest things ever, Hannah and I were at the top, and got all security lined up, a big wall of chaussee, to try and slow people down running to the stage. And there was about 3 lines along the arena of security just to try and slow them down. Gates open, everybody ran in, and they all ran to the toilet because the people in the front of the queue had been about 3 hours, and then when they came out of the toilet, they all ran to the catering units because they were starving.
Hungry.
There was about 4 people that ran straight to the stage, wasn't there?
We never had
it. That was quite funny. So yes, it was certainly the worst weather here, and quite possibly the worst I've ever experienced anyway. It was just from last Sunday. It just rained and rained constantly, and then the wind arrived later in the day. And to be honest, although it caused us some problems with screens, and we had to drop all the screens and take some of the scrims down, it helps dry the land out. There's only one story, the best story ever, and funny enough, Dan was involved. It was Metallica. Dan Probyn was part of this,
wasn't it?
And no, it was
the second year.
Second time, because the first year Metallica did it, they were surprise guests.
Oh yeah.
And then it was the second time when they were headlining.
Well, that's what you're going to talk about.
And there was Dan and I think it was Tony DiCiaccio, and they were walking around backstage about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I drove past them, and they were smoking cigars. And so I stopped and reversed. I said, I've always had a theory about Americans and cigars. You always smoke them either when it's gone really, really well, or it's all about to go really, really horribly wrong. I said, now based on the fact the band haven't even been on stage yet, I'm kind of guessing it's all about to go horribly wrong. And they told that Lars had been taken ill in Copenhagen or somewhere, like and wasn't going to make it. And as everybody knows, Lars is he's not just the drummer, he's the man, and very popular. So we had this dilemma. We'd got 80,000 rock fans all out in the arena, waiting to see the headliner, and no drummer. And we called a bit of a quick meeting, and all of a sudden the drummer from Slipknot and Slayer came up and said, "We'll do it." And there was a number of meetings and negotiations, and a lot of people going, "Are you sure? Are you really sure?" And then we set up a drum kit in a porta cabin with a cassette player and a Metallica cassette, or it might have been a DVD, CD. And I think Joe did it first and rehearsed 3 songs, and then we got him in a car, drove him around the track. Now by now the band are an hour late going on stage. I've had to go to the local authority, explain the situation, and said we are going to beat the curfew, we're going to break it, but if we don't, we're going to have a riot, because it's just going to kick off. And just before they went on stage, somebody turned around and said, "Well, how long have we got to play?" I said, "Just play more than an hour. If you do more than an hour, we might just get away with it." And even the band, they were going, "Oh, this is crazy." And I remember just literally going, "No, you're fine, it's going to be great. History will be made, man, go and push them on." And they went on, and I'll never forget the crowd when I made the announcement that Lars hasn't made it. And you just thought it was like 90,000 Neanderthal men, ready to kill. And I said, "But we've got some friends," and they came out and they started playing, and it was just unbelievable. The response to the audience was fantastic. By the time they'd come off stage, it was all over the web.
Yeah.
Every website in the world was doing it, and history was made. And it was one of those moments of, I was at Donington, when that happened. So that was absolute, and I can't imagine any other story, anything ever happening that's going to beat that.